fantastic debut by Andrew Cracker as the Collingwood Football Club just enjoyed another regulation day at the office at Etihad on Saturday. 75-point win over Port Adelaide. We're joined by one of the men that just sits at the helm and must enjoy watching Collingwood go through their paces from week to week. Mark Neeld, thanks for joining us, Mark.
No worries, Jason. Thank you.
Now, I did that game on Fox Sports and I actually made the comment that what scares me about Collingwood is that I thought Port Adelaide were terrific in the first quarter. They dominated the first 20 minutes of the third quarter. You blokes were in second gear and won by 75 points. I mean, what hope does that give everyone else?
Look, Jason, I'm sure it gives everyone a lot of hope, to be honest. Look, it's one game, and there were certain times where, as you said, Port Adelaide dominated the game. They kicked 5 unanswered goals either side of half-time.
And you still win by 75 points.
Yeah, well, we had a particularly good last quarter.
How'd you see Andrew Cracker's first up game? I mean, obviously, we saw their great highlights. How's his pre-season been and how's he just melded into the premiership team?
Yep, Alistair, terrific story. Andrew Cracker, from what he's been through, and we know that, so we don't need to elaborate on that. But just to move into state, for starters, you know, sometimes that's a big move in itself. Joining with a group, missed the pre-season camp in Arizona, but you wouldn't know it. He's got himself into the group. He works particularly hard. He's pretty quiet around the place, but his form over the pre-season really demanded selection in round one, and I think he put his best foot forward. You've
picked up a couple of fantastic mature age recruits in Chris Tarrant and also Andrew Cracker. He looks, for whatever reason, sometimes it's the jumper, but he looks so much trimmer than when he played at Richmond. He looks fit and ready to go. I know you gave him a spell late in the game, but his fitness looks to be very, very good. Yeah,
he's certainly probably in the top half for endurance of the club, so he's come in ready to go. And as you said, when you go and get mature age recruits, you want them to participate straight away and you want them to add value to your side, and we believe both Andrew and Chris can do that. When you heard the new rules were coming in, the substitute rule and concussion rule, what were your initial thoughts? Substitute rule, similar to most of the coaches. Look, we do have to give it time. It has been one round, but it's obviously going to cause immense discussion amongst all footy fans and commentators and coaches alike. But yeah, we would have preferred to have them left alone, or perhaps. And again, I heard Mick talk last night. You know, we were one of the ones that said, "Look, leave it at 4, and if you're worried about the fairness of the situation, put 4 plus 1." Yep.
How did it affect your planning pre-game? I mean, we haven't had it for too long in the competition. I mean, obviously, Dane Swan spent more time on the ground and pushed forward, but was there a lot of planning?
Not a great deal, Alistair. Look, it certainly it was obvious that the mids in particular were going to spend a greater period of the game on the ground, and you know, to be able to do that, they need to push forward, and that's not rocket science. We're aware that most clubs are going to do that. It was more just discussing what that looked like, and again, with Brad, we would have preferred, you know, those rules to be in place in the NAB Cup. We're actually trialling things in the premiership season, which is probably not the best way to go about it, but everyone's in the same boat, so you just deal with it. Brad made the comment earlier that he said at some stage he's going to be faced with a coach that rolls the dice and puts the sub on early, and then he's going to have to make a big decision. What's the Collingwood philosophy about its use? I mean, you brought McCaffrey on in the last quarter, pretty much just for a run for the last 15 minutes. Yeah, look, our philosophy is one that's going to evolve. We've had 1 week at it. Certainly we noted Scotty's comments after his practice game where he probably did pull the trigger early and then you got caught. Look, we'll sit back, have a look what everyone else is doing and have a look how it affects us over probably the next 4 or 5 weeks before we actually put a philosophy in place. Was that just purely and simply to give Andrew Cracker a rest when you used it on the weekend? Yeah, probably. And we felt that no one knows what it's... Well, I suppose back in the old days, people used to sit on the bench and maybe get 2 minutes at the end of the game. But, you know, that hasn't happened for a long time. And we just thought, you know, I wonder what Caff can do. He's been there for 3 quarters and 10 minutes. You know, let's put him on and see how he goes. And I think he was out there for 6 seconds and jagged a goal. So full claim success.
What do you do with him next week, Brent McCaffrey?
Yeah.
You don't rest him.
Well, given that
working very hard
coach is sitting there.
Don't rest him.
Yeah, look, we'll wait and see how match committee goes with Caff. But look,
but obviously he couldn't be the sub again next week, though.
You wouldn't think so.
Well, you don't. As I
That's
said,
the difficulty.
There's the opposition coach for next week. We'll go through match committee tomorrow.
That's the difficulty, though. I mean, we have to work out if someone like McCaffrey only plays limited game time, do you top him up with extra training? Do you freshen him up? It depends when it happens in the season. I mean, if it happens around round 13, 14, it's probably a good thing because you're freshening him up and he's right to go the next week. But early on in the year, You're worried about does he have enough condition, all those sorts of things. So it throws up a lot of interesting discussion, not just in the public but inside footy clubs as well.
Scotty, the AFL considered capping interchanges. They reduced it to 3 plus the sub, and yet the interchange numbers have gone up in round 1.
Yeah, look, coaches are always forced to react to rule changes. Whatever changes you make, we come up with ways to try and exploit them either in our favour or try and mitigate the downside of the rule change. So it was always going to elicit a response of some sort. But I was also against the capping of rotations because then that creates a real dilemma. I mean, when we talked about 20 interchanges as a cap, what would happen if you had 20 interchanges and you've got 3 minutes to go in a quarter and someone gets injured? What do you do then?
Well, makes a different. Well, makes a different.
So you want both?
Well, I suppose you've got the opportunity in that sort of situation where it's not there. But if you get multiple injuries, do you get the opportunity to put your substitute back on the ground as long as the guy that's come off misses a week?
Well, 4 interchange, no restrictions, starting to sound all right, isn't it?
Well, it is. And there's going to be a natural ceiling for rotations anyway, and I think these blokes weren't far away from it.
A nice little subtle backhander. I like that, Scotty.
I don't think it was that subtle.
I made the comment earlier that I was loving seeing so much attacking football in round 1. Have you noticed any different trends in 2011, or do you think the game's heading in a certain direction?
Well, again, I suppose it was terrific having the round go for 5 days. It meant we could see as much footy as we possibly could fit in. Look, after one round, I don't know if you'd call it a trend, but there seems to be some longer kicking coming into play. There seems to be distinct differences. Some clubs going for the full half-ground press, if you like. Other clubs are tinkering with the idea perhaps that's not the way to go for us. We'll actually put some numbers behind the ball. There was for me, it was a great round of footy. There was a draw, there was a 1-point result, a 2-point result, a 4-point result. It pretty much had everything, but I think we'll need to wait for a couple more rounds to see if we can work out the trends.
I suppose
75-point result as well, Lindsay.
There was absolutely pizzling, but there was probably the most talked about was going to be the game around was Geelong St Kilda. I mean,